Some years ago, I was in Pasadena in California, and I was having lunch with a couple of famous scientists. One was Paul McCready, who won the prize for man-powered flight across the English Channel with the Gossamer albatross that he invented. And the other fellow was Murray Gell-Mann, who won his Nobel Prize for the discovery of quarks. And we were talking about creativity and innovation and pattern switching and things like the aha phenomenon and surprise and so on. And of course, then the inevitable subject of humor came up. And Murray was just recounting a story that had happened to him recently, that he'd had two Doberman dogs and an avocado pear tree. And one of the dogs would eat all the avocados when they'd fall to the ground, and this was really bugging him. So being a very famous scientist, he thought about this and tried a few things, and eventually came up with the idea of sprinkling very hot cayenne pepper over the avocados on the ground. And this worked more or less because the the avocado eating dog wouldn't touch the avocados anymore now that they were sprinkled with pepper. But the other dog that didn't eat them before, now he started to eat the avocados because he liked them with the pepper. So it just does go to show that there's always another way of looking at things, and just when we're going down one particular pattern, there's the humor of sudden surprise and sudden switching. And so I just want to talk a little bit about humor in, while you're going through this lesson. Logic, the main purpose of logic, and it's perhaps why it's become so successful in our society and in our thinking, because logic is very good for preserving patterns. Logic is largely the operation of the yes-no system, the word no. No meaning that something does not fit the pattern. So if the pattern is red, we can look at this color, for example, say no, that's not red, that's green, so we can reject that. So it's very good for information sorting, like mail sorting or labeling things. Red, yes, green, no. Rejecting and selecting. That's what information processing is after all. But it's not very good for escaping from patterns in order to find better ones. And so that's where humor comes in. Humor is much better at changing patterns. Logic is very good at preserving them. And often in corporations, when we're doing our consulting programs or working with companies, we encourage them to use humor and encourage humor, because if there's not much humor going on in an environment, there's probably not much creativity, not much innovation, not much pattern switching, not much escaping from ways, not much experimentation, because there's no surprise, and the surprise phenomenon often produces a laughter. The aha phenomenon, surprise, aha, this is an interesting way, is very close to laughter. In fact, when you get a surprise and a whole new way of seeing things, if it's just temporary, then it might be funny and you have a laugh. Oh, it's like the punchline of a joke. For example, the young boy went to the ballet for the first time, and by the time he got through the first act, he turned to his mother and said, "Why don't they just get taller girls?" So he couldn't figure out why these girls were running around on their toes all the time. But the idea being is that you're going down a certain pathway, you get the punchline, and if it surprises you temporarily, you laugh. Although when you get that pattern switch, if it's permanent, that's called insight. You may be doing things a certain way. I think in one of the other lessons I talked about the lady who was working on the cranberries, and her idea was to wash out the tube at the end of the shift, so the cranberries would be still fresh and they could use them and save a lot of money, compared to the beginning of the shift where they were stale, they had to throw them away. But again, when you have that new idea, if it makes a lot of sense and it's a permanent switch, we call that insight. So the procedure is very, very similar. The procedure of humor, the process of humor, the idea of pattern switching is the same thing as creativity and innovation and insight. And so when we're going to be looking to escape from ideas, innovation, there's got to be a lot of experimentation. There's got to be a lot of mistakes. And it's this idea of making mistakes that we really need to get our head around. Now, clearly, there's a sensible reason to be wary of mistakes. Clearly, we understand that mistakes may be not useful, but we've given them too negative a label. There are many, many times when mistakes are useful. In fact, in learning, the main way that computers learn is through trial and error, through making mistakes. Certainly, the whole march of science, which has been unbelievably dramatic in the last 200 years, is largely driven by the willingness of scientists in experimentation to make mistakes. and often mistake after mistake after mistake. In fact, I was once going to write a book called How to Make Mistakes, because, and then I saw where someone had already written a chapter in their book on the same topic. But the importance of encouraging mistakes. And so sometimes in working with corporations, we tell them to make a list of their mistakes, and for managers to ask their employees or their team people, the knowledge workers in their team, what are some of the mistakes you've made in the last year? Not because we're going to check up on them and beat them into the ground, but in order to be concerned that if they're not making any mistakes, perhaps there's nothing creative, there's no innovation going on. And so mistakes are something that can be rewarded, not just punished, if we want to encourage innovation, creativity, and these sorts of things. So humor, mistakes, insight, the aha phenomenon, experimentation, these are the sorts of things we're looking for. We're trying to encourage innovation, change, and creativity.